Welcome. Today we're cutting through the noise to analyze a market that is, well, it's defined by an almost unbelievable contradiction: Iraq.
It really is. On the one hand, you have this data showing a youthful, mobile-first economy that seems just bursting with digital demand.
Projecting massive growth, but on the other hand, it's a landscape that is absolutely riddled with extreme financial, legal, and even personal risk.
Exactly.
And just so you know where this analysis is coming from, we are the Gambling Databases research team.
Right, our entire focus is delivering these.
They absolutely do.
But then we applied our full risk assessment model,
Yeah.
and the overall market attractiveness rating came out brutally low, 2.6 out of 10.
Wow, 2.6.
That's a critical signal. It tells you that the enormous opportunity we see in the consumer base is being completely choked by structural risk.
So we're not just reading a report today, we're dissecting a financial paradox. Our mission is to break down the legal chaos, the huge financial hurdles, and the very real security threats that define this market.
Which we've categorized, I think, accurately as a definitive Wild West scenario.
Absolutely. So let's start at the most restrictive point, the regulatory framework, or the lack of one.
Well, that's it. The single most important finding in our research is just complete legal ambiguity. Online gambling is formally prohibited. It is entirely unregulated.
So there's no federal legal basis for it to even exist.
Not at all. And enforcement, well, it's inconsistent. It often depends on the local political climate, which means that the formal, transparent structure you'd need for compliant international business is completely non-existent.
What about a physical presence? I mean, are there any regulated activities that could give us a hint of how the government might approach iGaming down the road?
Not really. Land-based activity is very tightly restricted to the basics. You have state lotteries and a few licensed sports betting venues.
Okay.
But beyond that, traditional casinos or slot halls, they operate strictly clandestinely. They have no clear legal provisions. And as a result, they're constantly subject to sporadic crackdowns.
By whichever regional authority feels motivated that week.
Precisely.
So let's talk about the idea of getting an actual license, because that's the bedrock of compliance for any global operator.
Yeah.
Our data says there is no formal federal licensing process.
That's right. It's a zero-score category. The system is a vacuum. And this is where we need to make a really crucial distinction for you, the listener.
Okay.
When reports mention an estimated cost of, say, $100,000 to $250,000 for a license, that money is not being submitted to the central government.
It's not part of a transparent legal application. So if it's not a legal application, what is that $250,000 paying for?
It refers entirely to informal arrangements. Payments. Essentially, they're payoffs to regional authorities, local power brokers, maybe even specific political factions.
So you're buying a temporary agreement not to be targeted.
That's it. And crucially, these payments lack any federal legal standing whatsoever.
So let me get this straight. An operator could pay, say, $250,000 to a regional official today. And tomorrow, a different federal branch or another power broker could just shut them down and they'd have zero legal recourse.
Precisely. You've exchanged a large sum of money for an oral temporary promise of local operational peace. That is why we rate the risk so incredibly low. It's not just unregulated, it's an active system of volatility.
Okay, so given this framework is based entirely on whims and informal deals, what does that mean for player protection? Things like age verification, responsible gambling protocols.
They're largely absent. Or they're highly decentralized. You know, an offshore operator might implement some basic AML measures on their own because they have to adhere to global banking standards.
But nothing is mandated by Iraqi authorities.
No, there are no mandatory government frameworks or auditing checks. Consumer protection is, frankly, a non-issue for the governing entities there.
So if we connect this chaos to the bigger picture of just running a business, what about taxes? If the sector is illegal, the official tax rate on GGR must be 0, right?
Officially, yes. The tax rate on GGR is none, officially. The sector is illegal, so the government isn't collecting standard revenue.
Wow.
But the reality check reveals a crippling effective rate. It's achieved through those informal channels, and it equates to somewhere between 20 to 30% in protection fees.
20 to 30%.
Yeah.
That's staggering. I mean, in a highly regulated market like the UK, GGR tax might be around 15 to 20%.
Right, but that buys you legal protection, regulatory stability, access to the entire banking system.
And what are these informal payments buying in Iraq?
Nothing but continued temporary operation. This substitution of legal, predictable tax with highly volatile, informal payoffs is a critical risk factor. It cuts straight into your margins.
And you have no certainty the rate won't just jump tomorrow.
Or that a new official won't show up demanding another payoff.
Exactly.
So how is that enforced? If there's no rule of law, is it just a physical shakedown?
It's often a combination, but it always comes back to arbitrary power. Enforcement is usually limited to regional or local authorities. The penalties can include heavy fines, shutdowns.
And you mentioned seizing assets.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about instances where local security forces or militias might just walk into an office, seize assets, or even detain personnel.
Okay, let's turn the page. Because all of that risk would just kill a market in any other jurisdiction. But Iraq is still projected to hit $200 million in revenue for 2025. What is the engine that's strong enough to override this level of risk? It comes down entirely to the consumer base, the intense hunger for digital engagement. Iraq's population is 43 million, but the demographics are overwhelmingly young. The median age is a remarkably young 21 years.
21. That's the average. That's a huge digitally native generation. And that's what's driving a projected 15% compound annual growth rate.
And they are accessible. 70% of the population is in major urban centers, Baghdad, Basra, Mosul, where internet access is concentrated. This isn't some scattered rural market.
It's a densely connected, tech-savvy youth cohort.
Exactly.
And the technology adoption figures really back that up. Internet penetration is at 50%. But mobile device adoption is nearing 75%.
It's a mobile-first nation, dominated by affordable Android devices, and that dictates the entire strategy. This consumer base is already deeply engaged online.
Daily internet usage averages, what, 3.5 hours a user?
3.5 hours, supporting enormous platforms. YouTube penetration is 89%. TikTok has seen 52% growth among the under 25s. That proves the underlying digital appetite is profound.
So here's where the money meets that demand. What are they playing?
Online sports betting is dominant. It's attracting about 35% participation, which tracks with high youth engagement we see in other developing markets.
And after sports?
That's followed by lottery and then live casino games. And the active user base is estimated at 2.5 million online gamblers.
Okay, 2.5 million. What about spending? The average revenue per user, the ARPU, is about $20 monthly.
And we have to look at that figure closely. $20 a month might sound low to a Western operator, but you have to anchor it in the local economy.
Right. The average per capita income is roughly $5,400 annually. So what's that, around $450 a month?
Exactly. So $20 is a substantial commitment. It is more than a casual entertainment budget. It suggests a really high intensity of demand.
Now, we have to overlay the cultural reality onto this. All this activity exists under strong cultural and religious opposition. Islamic beliefs generally prohibit gambling.
Which means you can't run standard ads. The marketing strategy is effectively a blackout.
No billboards, no legal banner ads.
No. Operators have to rely exclusively on underground affiliate networks, encrypted communications, and extremely discreet social media promotion. It adds another layer of complexity and cost.
So moving past that incredible demand, the operational challenges are where most compliant operators just hit a wall. If the legal ambiguity is risk factor A, then the biggest financial obstacle is risk factor B, the banking blockade.
Yes. Iraq is globally flagged as a high-risk jurisdiction for global banking. It's under intense sanctions, subject to stringent AML controls, and this has a direct, immediate impact on operators.
So if an offshore operator collecting revenue from Iraqi users, how do I actually get those profits out?
Repatriating profits is extremely difficult through standard banking channels. Moving that money out to a Tier 1 jurisdiction like the EU or the US is nearly impossible.
Because the major payment processors just block it.
Visa, MasterCard, reputable e-wallets, they often block gambling transactions originating from Iraq because the compliance risks are just too massive.
So the banking system acts as a financial choke point. The data shows traditional methods like cards and e-wallets are trying to adapt, but the real workaround is emerging in the most anonymous option.
Cryptocurrency.
All right.
Yeah. While it's only about 5% of transactions currently, crypto is the future of operating in these black markets. It's being adopted for anonymity and convenience because it entirely bypasses the centralized banking system.
You don't have to worry about a U.S. sanctions list triggering a block on your transfer.
Not at all. It's peer-to-peer. But that reliance on alternative financial channels drives up your overhead dramatically. Our research specifically noted alternative payment processing fees of 10 to 15%.
10 to 15%. Just think about that. In a stable market, you might pay 2% or 3%. Paying 15% is effectively a massive risk tax you're paying just to collect your own money.
It's among the highest fee structures we've recorded globally for an market of this size.
And that really summarizes the logistical headache. It's why we rate the operator E-score at a prohibitive 2.0 out of 10. But we have to address the final, most visceral risk: physical security.
And we're not talking about a regulatory fine here. We're talking about genuine danger. The research explicitly warns that operators who try to establish local offices face physical security risks.
Like what, specifically?
Direct extortion, kidnapping threats, and just the general political instability. Establishing a local footprint is basically an invitation for trouble.
And what about the executives running these operations?
They face a high travel risk. Detention for financial crimes, which is what unlicensed gambling is classified as, is a distinct possibility if you travel to or through Iraq. The risk of asset seizure and criminal charges is high and completely arbitrary.
So what does this all mean? Our final verdict is that Iraq is a Wild West black market. Period.
It is suitable only for two specific kinds of entities. First, aggressive gray market operators with deep established local connections, people who know the power brokers and can guarantee protection.
And the second?
Crypto-native casinos, the ones that entirely avoid the fiat banking system altogether and deal only in digital assets.
So conversely, this is a definite no-go zone for any publicly traded companies, white label operators, anyone dependent on standard credit card processing.
For 99% of compliant entities worldwide, the risk of asset seizure or regulatory whim just far outweighs that projected $200 million in revenue.
This analysis really does show the friction between that raw consumer demand and absolute legal uncertainty. You have this massive, young, mobile-first audience eager to play.
And they will drive that revenue. But they're running headfirst into a legal and financial system that's non-existent on a federal level, forcing operators into these incredibly high-risk, informal arrangements.
I think the core takeaway for you listening is the nature of the risk. The $200 million market projection is undeniably real, but the price of accessing it is the complete abandonment of traditional compliance.
And the acceptance of physical security threats, and a total reliance on these high-risk, expensive financial channels. It fundamentally challenges the assumption that attractive demographics automatically translate into an attractive, investable market.
Thank you for joining us for this in-depth analysis. We are the Gambling Databases research team, and for the full text of this and other country reports, visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com.